Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and this is the 2022 Honda Civic Si. Honda announced the 11th generation Honda Civic for 2022, and they released the non-Si, the more regular daily driver sort of trims, first at the end of last year. And we were all, of course, very excited for the next iteration of the Si. That is Honda's sportier version of the Civic, and we finally got our hands on one to try it out. This is an all-new car for 2022. This is the 11th generation of Honda Civic, and Honda has done a lot of different and new things for the 11th generation, especially as pertains to the Si. They know that the Si is the affordable, attainable performance version of the Civic. It is meant for driving enthusiasts who want something that's a little more spicy, a little more fun, but still want a Civic at its core, which is to say something that is good to drive, something that is reliable, something that is good on gas, all of that sort of thing. So let's talk about what Honda has done to this 2022 Civic Si, talk about all of the hardware, all of the performance, and then we'll get on the road and see how it actually is to drive. All right, so let's talk about all of the mechanical bits that Honda has changed to make the Civic Si different and better than the regular Civics for 2022. Now, before you get all wound up about the fact that there's actually 5 less horsepower for 2022 than there was in the outgoing Civic Si, let's get into all the details and talk about what else Honda has done, because it's actually not a bad thing and I don't care and you shouldn't either. So first of all, powertrain wise, what is going on with this 2022 Civic Si? Well, it is a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes only 200 horsepower, not 205 like the outgoing model. It also makes 192 pound-feet of torque. And that is all sitting right here, paired to a standard 6-speed manual transmission. Honda, in their presentation to me, said the Civic Si has been available with a stick and 3 pedals for 35 years, period. Which is to say they're not offering this car with a 2-pedal automatic of any sort. If you want that, you can go to the platform mate, the Acura Integra, and they will sell you one of these with a CVT. But they also have a 6-speed in that, so all hope is not lost. Anyway, 6-speed manual transmission is your only transmission offering here, paired to this turbo 1.5. And Honda gives you a standard limited slip differential, which again, love that. They had that on the old car as well, but given these are all front wheel drive cars, you really want an LSD to put power to both front wheels, especially if you're trying to accelerate hard from a stop or out of a corner. Now, I said we shouldn't get too bent out of shape about losing 5 horsepower with the 2022 Civic Si, and I'll tell you why. So first of all, with Honda's change of the tune or other little bits of the engine here, peak torque, which is 192 foot-pounds, does not sound like a ton, but peak torque comes in 300 RPM sooner than it did before, which is to say it comes in at 1800 RPM. And that torque curve, if you look at the dyno graph, goes up and over pretty much flat. When you get to 1800 RPM, it just goes whoop, whoop, and that's really nice to see. Obviously, horsepower builds and builds and builds as you get toward the tippy top of the revs, and they said they also worked on how this engine produces power, and it feels stronger at the top of the rev range, which again we'll talk about when we get to the driving portion. Now, Honda did both of those things. They also cut 26% of weight out of the flywheel. So the flywheel goes between the engine and the transmission, and it has to spin with the engine. So cutting 26% of its rotating weight out is huge, because it means the engine can spin faster with less effort. So what that means is if you're trying to rev match a downshift or wind this thing out starting from a stop or accelerating through a gear, the engine can rev a little quicker because it doesn't have as much rotating weight to deal with. Now, as we talk about the transmission, like I said, it's only that 6-speed manual. Honda also did a few things to change the transmission with the Civic Si. They moved the entire shifter closer to the driver, they increased the spring load, and they shortened the shift throw. So in theory, they improved the shifter over the outgoing model. Again, we'll talk about that in the upcoming driving segment. But again, more effort was put into making this better in every way as a driver's car. Now, the other couple of things that could have been done were done a little bit. So Honda could have done more with suspension, brakes, and exhaust. Now, they didn't do too much because, of course, you have to be mindful of cost. So the Civic Si only has a fixed rate suspension, which is to say no adaptive dampers. It just is what it is. I don't think that's a bad thing. all of this I don't think is a bad thing. We'll get into that in just a second. But fixed rate dampers, the exhaust is of course louder and a little more deep than a regular Civic. It's about 27% louder, but it's not an active exhaust or anything like that. So again, could have done it, didn't. Cost reasons, they're really working on cost. I think this is a lot of car for the money. The other thing that Honda did do is they upsized the brake rotors over a regular Civic. So if you think of like a Civic EX, the brake rotors are bigger here, both front and rear, but no giant calipers, nothing too crazy. But again, this car doesn't necessarily need it. So the biggest thing about all of this, which I really love, is that Honda has kept the weight in check. Not only did they pull weight out of different components like the flywheel, they also managed to make the entire chassis stiffer in every which way over the outgoing model, and they kept the whole thing under 3,000 pounds. This is 29 pounds. It's under 3,000, and that to me is wildly impressive given the size of the car. Civics have gotten larger than they were in the past, and this is a car that you could put someone my height in. I'm 6'1". I could ride in the back seat of this and be comfortable. Normally with a sub 3,000 pound car in 2022, modern safety gear, modern amenities, you're seeing those with like Mini Coopers, Mazda Miatas, Hyundai Velosters. You're not seeing a ton of performance sedans that are sub 3,000. Even if they're at 3,100, 3,200, they're still not sub 3K. So all that to say, this I think on paper is a very nice package. And of course I mentioned price. We have to mention that before we get out of here. This particular Civic Si is the HPT, the high performance tire model. You'll notice if you look up close, this one actually doesn't have the high performance tires on it. This has the all seasons that you get on the non-HPT car, which is not a huge deal. Honda has just not switched these over. It was with some other people in colder climates before it got to me where it's 93 degrees. But the HPT gives you some summer tires versus these all seasons. It's like a $200 difference. And the Civic Si HPT really has no big options to speak of otherwise. $27,500 plus destination. So you're in at like 28 and some change. And that is of course assuming no dealer markup, which are ridiculous, but that's not something that Honda is setting or dealing with. That is a dealer thing. But MSRP 27.5. I think this is a ton of car for 27.5. And like I said, now there is the Acura Integra that is also on this car's platform. It is a slightly spicier take on the Honda Civic, as the Integra has always been. We will talk about that in another video, hopefully with an Integra to talk about. But if you want certain options on a Civic Si, if you want this powertrain with heated leather seats, with fog lights, with wireless charging, all sorts of those luxury features, you're buying an Integra. Honda has kept this car simple. This is more or less a Civic LX with some stuff, with all the performance stuff done to it. And again, I think that's a great thing because it keeps the price down. So, all right, so before we get into driving the Civic Si, let's start with a little tour of a few more things. And the first I want to show you is the key. This is the cutest little key. I absolutely love it. I have a thing for good keys, and I think this one's just brilliant. It feels nice, it is nice and small, it is everything you need and nothing you don't. And of course, standard keyless entry and go with a start button and handles that are touch sensitive. Looking inside here, the only option for your seats are these seats. They all are red in the center with this SI logo right here. And they're all pretty nicely bolstered on the sides and a little bit here on the butt cushion. Really like the seats. They are manually adjustable, so you've got one for your seat back and one for your seat height. It moves the back of the seat up and down. And then of course you've got your standard bar that you grab here to slide the seat forward and back. Now looking over here, there's a couple controls for your traction control and your Honda sensing. This is all your driver assistance configuration, your dash lights, and then one of your vents. I love the vents in this car. As we get inside, you'll see what else I am talking about. The vents run all the way across here, and I think it's such a cool design. I'm gonna go ahead and start the car because it's a million degrees outside. I want you to notice something about the gauge cluster. So on the right-hand side is an actual gauge. You can probably see the needle right there. There's also a screen on this side that shows you your tachometer and a bunch of information. Now, Honda has configured the car to do a gauge sweep, so that the two needles for the speedometer and the fake tachometer sweep. Notice that they don't quite sweep at the same time. Now, no one else in the world will care about that except me, but I find little details like that annoying. They got the key so right. Why did the gauges not quite work the same way? Really wish they did. However, if that's the worst thing I can say about this whole car, then so it goes. So like you can see here, you can change things on the cluster, so you can see all sorts of different information right here within your tachometer, or you can turn that all off and just have a tach. And then the center screen here shows you a whole bunch of different things based on what you've got going on with your different technology and other settings going on. Looking at the steering wheel, I really like the wheel. You've got buttons on this side for your audio controls. This controls your tachometer screen information, and then everything on this side is for your cruise control. Now, unlike some competitors, I'm looking at you, WRX, Honda does have adaptive cruise control with a stick shift. Love to see that. Not everyone's doing it, and you can downshift and it will just resume what you were doing even if you dropped a gear or two. Looking further over here, you've got your center infotainment screen. This does have Apple CarPlay. It is wireless. Also has Android Auto, which is wireless. They have a real volume knob, which I love. The hard home button takes you out of CarPlay or Android Auto back to the Honda screen, which is, again, great. This system, I think, is pretty functional. Maybe not the outright most beautiful, but I really love the simplicity of it, and I think it will age nicely. So that is your touchscreen. Now, the volume knob is directly above one of your adjusters for your climate vents. I can admit to occasionally trying to turn down the climate vent when I wanted to turn down the speakers, but again, that's something you would get used to if you actually owned the car. Looking further down here, you've got your automatic climate control. This is single zone climate, pretty simple, just one knob for your temperature, and then controls for your fan speed, your mode, and a couple other climate-y things. Looking further down here, where my sunglasses are, this is just a mat. This is not a wireless charging pad. You've got two USBs, both USB-A. This is to plug in for CarPlay and Android Auto if you want a little higher quality sound, and then this is to charge your phone with USB. They do have a 12-volt lighter socket for something like a radar detector or, I don't know, whatever else. And then looking further back here, you've got your 6-speed manual shifter. We love to see that. More on that in a minute. And then next to the shifter, we've got drive modes. There's only a couple. There's normal and sport and individual. We'll get into that in a second too. You've got your button to turn off your auto start stop, which we always push in every car because it's terrible. You've got your electronic parking brake, and then you've got a brake hold that you can turn on, and that will actually let you take your foot off the brake pedal at stoplights and things and not roll back. Looking further back here, you've got two cup holders. There's no cover over this, just is what it is. And then opening the center console, you've got a pretty deep space here. I can fit my camera in here if I'm very careful. So nice armrest space going on in there. And then looking further up, you've just got pretty typical map light, door controls, and you've got a regular sunroof, which is, again, absolutely fine. I have no need for anything like a panoramic roof in a car like this. This is about driving first and foremost. So with that, let's go for a drive. All right, so let's talk about driving the 2022 Civic Si. Like I said, this is only available with a stick shift, and I love it, although a lot of people complained about rev hang in the old Civic Si. So that is when you put the clutch in to change gears, the RPMs actually stay a little higher than where they should be before falling, and it makes it tough to be smooth. That is still something that's going on with this car, although I think it is much improved over the old car. Significantly improved, as a matter of fact. I will let it be known, I am not the biggest fan of the outgoing Civic Si. I know a lot of people just kind of love every Civic Si that has existed. The old one I thought on paper was a really great car, and then when I drove it, I really just, it didn't come together for me, despite having, all the stuff on paper. It had this engine and a limited slip and the 6-speed and all that good stuff. Now, we've got the chance to do some acceleration here, so let's talk about the clutch in this car as we do that. And I'm not gonna launch it or anything, but can kind of hear that rev hang, just a little bit of extra as we accelerate. The other interesting thing, this clutch engages and disengages toward the top of the pedal travel, so you can put your foot down just a hair, and that's all the movement you need in the clutch pedal to actually do everything that matters. Beyond that, there's just a lot of travel for nothing. And I have found I'm having to adjust my foot to actually be smooth. If I go all the way to the floor between gear changes, it's like too far. You could, almost put a clutch stop in here, and that would make it a little easier to drive. You're not going to hurt anything if you go all the way to the floor, but you also don't need to. So just kind of interesting. Of course, as you drive the car more and more, you'll get used to everything. All of us that are doing this for a week at a time, it's tough to get used to a manual transmission in 1 week sometimes. I've put 361.7 miles on this car now, and I do think I'm getting better with the clutch as I drive it a little bit more. I'm learning how to be smooth with it. So don't have to go quite all the way to the floor, but most of the way, that's where you want to end up going. As far as the shifter itself, it is a delight. Older Hondas were very well known for having excellent shifters. I wasn't the biggest fan of the one in the old Civic Si. This one is tremendously good. It is bolt action rifle feeling, for lack of a better term. It's just, click, click, click. Very positive feel, very easy and sure-footed, sure-handed feeling for changing gears. You know that you're in the right gear, and it just feels so nice to operate. It is a joy. I wish all manuals felt this good. The one thing that I don't love, Honda does include automatic rev matching for downshifts in this car. They say that they can do that now where they couldn't in the outgoing model, so this is new for this model year. I don't like it. I typically don't like it in a lot of cars. It is technically quicker and helpful if you're in a track scenario, an autocross scenario. On the street, I really just find it annoying because Honda has made the pedals perfectly spaced for heel toe downshifts. So if you know how to heel toe, it makes life really easy, and you will naturally want to do that, and then the auto rev matching gets confused and it's all kind of a pain. Good news is you can go into the center touchscreen and turn off the auto rev matching. It's very easy to do, so not really a problem there. Just it was something that was a little annoying when I first got the car till I turned it off. Now, as far as everything else for acceleration and braking, those sorts of things, they are absolutely fine. I think this car is plenty quick. I know Honda says that this reaches its torque peak starting at 1800 RPM. You typically drive torque. People buy horsepower for the big numbers, but torque is what you feel around town. This feels plenty fine around town. However, for me, it feels like it falls a little out of the power band and a little out of the torque band below like 2500 RPM. So if I'm on the highway and speeds slow down a little bit, sixth gear is not the perfect gear for every 45 mile an hour plus scenario in this car. I'm in fourth right now doing 45, and it feels much happier, like the engine is in its sweet spot. If I go up to sixth, the car will do it. We're at 2000 RPM, and you can feel the turbo making boost and slowly picking up some speed, but it is just much happier if you're in fourth or even fifth. So this is a car that kind of rewards and encourages you shifting a lot, which, again, I like, because I like working for the power. I like cars that are achievable, attainable horsepower on the street, because you can wind out first, second, third, maybe fourth, and not be going to jail in a car like this. So I really, really love it. Obviously, cars with a ton of power are fun in different ways, but for driving around most places, most times, having cars that are lower power is just a little bit more fun. Let's be real there. I do think this makes plenty of power. I think the brakes have really good initial bite. I think the pedal feels really good if you have to lean into them a little bit more, even when they're cold. And then perhaps the biggest improvement with this car is the steering. Honda retuned the steering as part of the jump to the 11th gen. They also made the whole chassis a lot stiffer. This car will take a turn very, very well. Obviously, where I am right now, not a lot of chances to demonstrate that, but it feels very good with turn-in, with, holding your steering. There's a lot of good feel. You know exactly where the front wheels are. And then, of course, you've got that limited slip diff that actually puts the power down. And if you lay into the throttle while as you're exiting a corner. You can feel the front start to squirm just a hair, and the differential just puts the power down and it goes. It is very confidence inspiring, and the whole car, you know, it's working with you. It's not doing anything that you don't want it to do, even on these all-season tires, which I will say are not good at all. They are lousy in the dry. They are worse in the wet. I was on a back road going to Cars and Coffee over the weekend. It had rained the night before. The roads were just damp, no standing water. I could feel the front end of the car washing out as I drove. So don't know how the summer tires are. The all-seasons are a Goodyear all-season tire. I would budget for a new set of tires if you care about good feel and good grip beyond a certain point. This car only has a couple thousand miles on it. It's got about 2,600 miles on it, so it's not like the tires are worn out, but they really want to wash out in damp or wet weather. So just something to be mindful of, but tires thankfully are relatively easy to change out if you don't like how these feel. If you don't care, then roll around on them for a while till you use them up and pick something else. But beyond that, this is just a really delightful car. I think it's a ton of car for the money. Like I said, under $28,000 MSRP, closer to 27 if you get the all seasons, not the summer tires. And of course, you know, spend a little bit on different tires if you care. People online were whining about, oh, it doesn't have fog lights, oh, it doesn't have leather, it doesn't have heated seats, it doesn't have whatever. This is everything that I think a lot of people care about, myself included. Could it have more features? Sure. In Canada, the Civic Si gets more features. But I think this is everything you need. It is nothing you don't. I think Honda has focused keeping the price where they want it, and you know, focusing on the performance more than anything. And it is plenty nice in here for what it is. And not every car has to be a luxury car. All of you luxury queens. I think this is great. I would have loved heated seats before it got to be 93 degrees out. Otherwise, this is all very, very good. Honda also is very proud of having their Bose sound system. I mentioned if you want to plug in for better sound quality with CarPlay, you can stream lossless audio over a USB cord with CarPlay and Apple Music, but you have to plug in. You can't do it over Wi-Fi with wireless CarPlay. And Honda has this Bose system. It is far better than what they had in the outgoing Civics as a premium audio system is concerned. I don't think it's the best system I've heard. It's a little muddy. There's not a lot of, I don't know, it could be crisper. It's a lot of mids, but it's a Honda Civic. It is a very good sound system for a Honda Civic. Again, put everything in perspective. It's a $27,000 car. It has Bose audio, which is hit or miss based on the car it's in, but in here it is more hit than miss. And they, you know, it's great that they're actually offering a premium sound upgrade, or in the case of the SI, it's just what you get. But like I said, in general, lovely car. I have come to really get into this car over the 7 days I've had it. I am going to miss this one when it goes back because it is just so well executed, well thought out, well screwed together, no rattles, no vibrations, no buzz. It's all just so nicely done for being a basic car that's a little zhuzhed up. All right, and that is it for this review of the 2022 Honda Civic Si. As always, thank you so much for coming along. If you like this video and our channel, please be sure to like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and share some of our stuff with all of your friends. We so appreciate all that support. If you'd like to follow us elsewhere, we can be found on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Out Motorsports. Or if you'd like to connect with a community of LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors, head over to outmotorsports.com. We would love to have you join us over there or in person for one of our upcoming events, like our track cross at Summit Point Motorsports Park on October 8th and 9th. Thank you so much for coming along. We will see you for the next one.